Good morning. This is Pixie doing his vids. Get out there. Yeah, I was concerned because I can't remember his beard. I just got to think in my head. Yeah, I mean it's with Loose Women. You get on UK TV. They like to bring up different things and have a chat and a bit of a kind of a banter about it. But there seems to be sideline issues they're pushing. They're pushing political agendas around things, and that's quite concerning. It's almost like they've been told what to say, or it's slightly scripted. I can't remember, it's twice I've heard stuff. There's really, what they're looking to do is militarise schools. That's what really they're looking towards, doing stuff around schools. So I saw some thinking it was on about having psychologists in a school and being able to, I guess, be able to assess students. There we go. And that was a little scary because it's okay to assess people's needs, but I think what they're going to do is you create a mentor or create a parent within the school, and that parent is the state, and then you kind of can push propaganda. And then you'll have children saying, "Oh no, mummy, no daddy, the lady, whatever the mentor said, or the, like state nanny said." That's what it is. And it's just putting these different control systems in place. So what kind of? It didn't rile me. It just seems stupid. You're going about knife crime, okay? Now knife crime's, basically is violence. So if people have issues with dealing with things, they may turn to some type of weapon to deal with that problem. And in their minds, they've already got it premeditated. If he rubs me up the wrong way, I'm just going to stab him, or whatever's going on in their heads, or I'm going to use it to intimidate this person. And then it goes much further than that. And it comes from an insecurity of them in themselves. Because if they haven't got the dialogue or the abilities to deal with the situation, then they turn to weapons. And I think maybe most would in extreme situations, but it's not having. It's the lack of the abilities to see that where the situation is going to go, follow the foresight of what's going to happen, and not putting yourself in extreme harm. Often it's violence I've experienced, not myself, but it's happened. What are you doing? There's a car, it's like doing loads of weird stuff. It doesn't know what it's doing. Let's get around it. And so it's lack of foresight, lack of personal skills. Like where I live, it's always been some people, if there's something kicked off that's involved weapons and stuff, it's usually because of the drugs involvement, and so they use these things so they can protect their goods, because they're more afraid of what happens if the drugs get taken off them. Or they believe they're running an empire of some kind. And that's where it usually goes wrong. It's because if they're dealing these sorts of things, they're using them, and then they get caught up in the world so much that they can't tell the reality from fiction, and then they sort of take on a kind of what they believe is some type of, I don't know, gangster thing. I don't know what it is going on there. So that's one thing, an issue around identity. That's probably as well. I mean, I've got weapons, but I don't go walking around with them. I'm just not interested in weapons generally, so I don't think I'd bring them to a fight. It would be the worst thing ever. I remember once I had a fight with a neighbour, and my ex-wife now was trying to hand me a bloody samurai sword out the window. I thought, well, it's not going to help it, because it's going to escalate it, and I can already see the foresight. And do I really want to get that involved? I mean, it was only like it was only fighting over bloody rubbish. It was her who caused it. This is why we're probably divorced. because she was a little, but I mean, bipolar, got no issue with any sort of mental health, just that she seemed to see the red mist come over her, and she was really getting fired up over things, and so like the neighbour was putting their rubbish on our side, so she would chuck it back on their side, and then they put it back on our side because they want the bin man to collect it, and then it became a sort of silly thing where they had an argument, or had some kind of an argument, and then her husband come home, and he got pissed with his old man, and I was out, and then he kicked off and said, "Where's this fat effing me?" Because he can't hear her, so he's going to attack me over it. And I just went around there to try to normalise the situation, like, what's all this, what's this stuff going on, and all that sort of thing. But he said, "Yeah, right, on you go, mate, want to fight. That's where it all kicked off. So so basically, I didn't want to use a weapon in the situation. The other guy did. So but as soon as he done that, I guess he's lost. He was picked up a big rock on his thing because he said, I'm a Scouser, mate. And I thought, well, I don't think all Scousers pick up big, large bricks and want to try to crack people's heads open like coconuts. And so there's a situation that escalated, and you've got to know how to de-escalate things. If you're going to have a weapon, you've got to be able to use it effectively, understand how dangerous it is at certain levels. How do you use it defensively? Because some people are more weaker when they use a weapon because they put all the faith in that weapon. So if they get kicked in the nuts or something, or whacked in the leg, or something like that would be fine. Or they even get thrown by it. If they lead with that arm, the other arm's not doing anything, they get smacked in the chops, it can change the whole situation, and then that knife or that weapon can be used on them, which can often happen, especially if they got jumped from behind. They got the knife, they think you're intimidated, and then somebody cracks them across the skull, and then they're seeing stars and everything's spinning, and the other person can see that they're not focused properly, steps in and whacks someone. That's a sort of part of a situation. But anyway, I've sort of gone off a bit on a tangent. So with the night, what this thing was doing on this loose women, they were sort of discussing the weapon. We were saying about knife crime generally, and I'd say it's just a trend. It may increase because the population's increased, but it's a natural trend. Most things need to be sorted out with the parents at home. That's where the weakness lies. But I was saying about metal detectors in schools. Why would you want metal detectors in schools for? And should we increase the fences and then have these people constantly doing psychological tests on children? Then they can figure out already ahead of time what careers they should have, if they're a threat to the state, what programming they need to make sure that they follow the state's guidelines. And then if we increase the fences, it can be a nice female camp as well. And also find out what the parents are doing. That's the other thing. Tell me about your daddy. Tell me about money. Do they ever use funny drugs? And things like that. Do they ever use things that are not prescribed by Big Pharma? Big Pharma's our best friend. So is Monsanto. You can see it happening quite easily. And drinking Coca-Cola is very good for you. It gives you lots of energy when you want to play sport. Make sure it's got lots of sweeteners in it, so you can have some really psychotic and strange things, So you could break the child or make them turn them into a telltale. It's okay. Well, what we'll do, because your parents have been bad, we're going to put you with some better parents. It's not your fault, and stuff like that. So all this weird stuff will happen. And I don't know. I think there's mainly the psychologist and the metal detector that sort of triggered me. But it was the way this loose woman had to finish the conversation a certain way. Oh, do you think there's metal detectors? Oh, I think what we need to do is have like mums group together, mums inside. So it's dividing them, setting them up into groups, and it's just setting people up against each other, really. I mean, the same problem will exist 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. As long as knives exist, you can't ban all knives. And if you ban knives, then people start buying with forks. That's all happen. So anyway, this is Pixie sign off, and have a good one.